I'm Jeff Beck for RoadTrailRun, and this video is all about the Brooks Glycerin 20 and the New Balance 1080 V12. If you aren't aware, the Glycerin is Brooks's bigger cushion neutral daily trainer, while the 1080 is New Balance's bigger cushion neutral daily trainer. Both shoes have been staples in many runners' regular rotation, and these shoes' best use is for your easy miles, especially if you appreciate a little extra cushioning underfoot. The last few models of Glycerin have been a steady evolution, sticking with pretty safe design choices and keeping with a philosophy that will likely keep Glycerin fans happy each year. The 19 was a little better than the 18, which was a little bit better than the 17, etc. They all used Brooks's tried and true, if a little boring, EVA midsole called DNA Loft. DNA Loft was great for relatively soft cushioning without ever feeling mushy. Meanwhile, the last few iterations of 1080 have been very polarizing. The shoe took a big leap forward a few years ago with the V9, which turned it into a very runnable shoe because the V8 was lumbering and kind of ponderous. But the V9 had a bit of an awkward heel and caused many runners to have lockdown issues. The V10 was improved on most fronts. It had more cushioning, better upper, and a different, yet still kind of awkward heel that caused many runners to still have lockdown issues. The V11 was an even more refined V10, but now with a heel that was awkwardly shaped on the inside, and lockdown was the least of its concerns. Personally, I had constant heel pain anytime I had the V11 on either foot, so heel slip was a rounding error compared to the tire fire that the shoe's shape had taken on. And that leads us to where we are today. The Glycerin 20 has an upper that's very reminiscent of the Glycerin 19. It's breathable, it's comfortable, there's good stretch, but also good foothold. But the big story is the midsole. It's no longer DNA Loft. It's DNA Loft V3. The third version is now a supercritical nitrogen-infused midsole that Brooks debuted last year in their Aurora, which was literally my road shoe of the year for 2021. It's a bit of an awkward-looking shoe that fits well and it's fun and bouncy to run in, but that's part of the problem. Personally, I found, and I've read reports from other runners who have had similar issues, that if I ran in the super bouncy shoes like the Aurora or ZoomX Invincible very many times in a week, the pain and aches in my calves and Achilles would flare up. So while I've been waiting with bated breath to see what a more fun Glycerin would run like, I couldn't get over the nagging in the back of my head that they'd cause the same pain the Aurora would. With more than 30 miles on the shoe, I've yet to experience that. However, while the Glycerin 20 is far bouncier than the 19, it's also more constrained than the Aurora. Perhaps it's the extra rubber outsole or the different shape of the midsole, but it doesn't have the same bounce and subsequent grin the Aurora brings. It does have substantial amounts of midsole cushioning, measuring at the heel 3 millimeters higher than the Aurora or Glycerin 19. I have it at 39 millimeters on the dot. And it isn't just a higher stack, it's a wider platform as well. It's several millimeters wider than the Glycerin 19 at every part of the shoe, and the feel is unmistakably more cushioned than the G19. Now to pivot to the 1080 V12. Much like the new Glycerin, the 1080 went bigger in every way. The wider platform and higher stack height are immediately noticeable, and the upper is more plush than any of the previous 1080s. Of all the bigger cushion trainers, say the Brooks Glycerin, Saucony Triumph, Asics Nimbus, Mizuno Wave Sky, etc., the 1080 always seemed like the least cushioned of them. That's no longer the case. The V12 really packed on the squish in a very nice way. Unlike the Glycerin 20, however, there is no new midsole material here, and New Balance stuck with their EVA-based Fresh Foam X. New Balance has been using it for a few years in a handful of their more cushioned shoes, and it worked well in the most recent Fresh Foam More V3 that made it a super soft, creating one of the most pure recovery day shoes. Don't fret though, the 1080 V12 is not that well cushioned and is still an exceptional shoe for most of your miles. I think a big part of what makes it more versatile is the shoe's geometry. There is a bit of a rocker there, encouraging your foot forward with every step. It isn't as extreme as the Saucony Endorphin Shift or Asics Glide Ride, but it's noticeable at all speeds. And while the 1080 heel has been a point of contention for years, they've gone more conventional this time around, and the result is one of those things that doesn't require much thought. which means they did it right. Now, for the direct comparison between these two new behemoths. As I mentioned before, I've got more than 30 miles on the Glycerin 20, and even though the 1080 V12 just got here, I've already got 10 miles on them. So these are still pretty early impressions, but here goes. Both shoes are effectively the same weight, with the Glycerin just 4 grams lighter at 316 versus the 1080 at 320 grams. That's 11.15 ounces versus 11.29 ounces for my 10.5. While the Glycerin stack height does measure 39 millimeters, the 1080 is 36 millimeters. But wearing them on opposite feet for a few miles, the 1080 felt every bit as cushioned, if not even a little more. Also, the bulging sides of the Glycerin make it measure a few millimeters wider with calipers, but on the foot, the effective platform feels wider on the 1080. As much as I appreciated the DNA Loft and V3 in the Aurora, and I think it works well here, I don't think the 1080 suffers for not having a shiny new midsole material. The Glycerin upper is thinner, but both shoes hold the foot well and have ample, if not incredible width, toe boxes. Both outsoles have plenty of durable rubber, and neither seems to restrict the shoe's flexibility in either way. We're working on multi-tester reviews for both shoes, and those will be out soon with more comparisons to other shoes, as well as several different opinions from other reviewers. For now, I'll leave you with this. I've said many times over the last few years that in a vacuum, most shoes on the market do exactly what they claim to do. More cushioning, better fit, run smoothly, softer upper, etc. But where it really matters is the comparison. Claims of soft can mean just about anything, but pitting one shoe against another allows you to get clarity on which is more soft, fits better, runs smoother, etc. This is one of those cases that I can't tell you which shoe that I like more. Both of them get virtually everything right, and I'm already struggling to come up with even minor things that they get wrong. This may be one of those cases that most runners looking for this type of shoe would do best not to overthink it and just pick one, because in either case, I don't think you can go wrong. Thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for both reviews coming very soon to RoadTrailRun.com.